Excuse my language, but what in the hell is that Seattle Seahawks front office doing? Pete Carroll, John Schneider, are you trying to turn the fans against you? Okay, I could live with Seattle trading away Russell Wilson. I'm not going to sit on that. But the disrespect towards franchise legend, arguably the best linebacker in football in the last decade, and Bobby Wagner, and now this? 3 years and $33 million with upside you couldn't match for DJ Reed, one of the NFL's premier up-and-coming talents at the cornerback position, which, by the way, is a premium position in the NFL, something that the Seattle Seahawks are, I guess, allergic to, because when they make trades, they don't trade for premium players. When they trade away their premium players, they don't ask for premium players or even premium compensation in return. Now, DJ Reed, we're talking about a Seahawks defense that, in terms of total passing yards allowed, was second to last in the NFL, second to last only to the Baltimore Ravens. The Seahawks secondary gave up over 4,500 yards in coverage last season. As far as overall defense, the Seahawks defense ranked 28th. 28th in the NFL as far as total yards allowed per game. 379.1. So that happened. The defense performed that awful last year, or at least throughout the first half of the season. And still, you let a 25-year-old cornerback who plays a premium position, who is one of your better players, who was one of your best players last year, and you let him go to the New York freaking Jets? I'm losing it. Look, I understand Seattle has the 9th overall pick in the draft. I understand the draft is deep at cornerback. But Seattle has never invested more than a 3rd-round pick in a quarterback in the Pete Carroll and John Schneider era. I understand there's a caveat that comes with that just because Seattle hasn't really had the opportunity to select in the top half of NFL drafts. But needless to say, the point remains. They have not selected a cornerback higher than the 3rd round. And the last time that happened was back in 2017 when they drafted Shaquille Griffin. Guess what? He's no longer on the team. He left last year in free agency. What are the Seahawks doing? Yes, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Yes, I want to be able to trust the front office, Pete Carroll and John Schneider. But what exactly have we witnessed in the last 4 to 5 years that should inspire confidence, that should give us confidence, that should give fans the want to be able to give these guys the benefit of the doubt? What if it was all along the talent that has been carrying these guys? And yes, I know that sounds disrespectful because these guys have been able to carve out a legacy in the National Football League. You'll hear a lot of the star players even talk about and credit, a lot of the success to both Pete Carroll and John Schneider, as well as everybody else in that locker room, in the organization. Seattle Seahawks, this is a very pristine organization, one of the top notch, one of the top run, one of the top tier organizations, franchises that the NFL has to offer. And so I just do not understand what the Seahawks are doing right now. Yes, they probably have a plan. Yes, this is probably going to be a rebuilding year. But like I just said, this guy is 25 years old. Forgive me though, man. I'm real heated right now. I don't know what the hell, excuse my language, I don't know what the hell the Seattle Seahawks is doing. I don't know what direction they're going in. And yes, they could take a Sauce Gardner at 9th overall. They could take a Derek Stingley at 9th overall. But what about their history suggests that they're willing to make a move like that? There's still needs at pass rusher. There's still needs at offensive line. There's still a need at quarterback. There's still a need at depth at receiver. There's plenty of needs everywhere. Just talent overall is a need. Now that I've gotten some of that off my chest, I do just want to say, I guess let's be patient. Let's give the Seahawks front office this offseason to kind of capitalize on things. And wow, excuse me. Forgive me. Forgot to even introduce myself. I'm your host, Calvin Domingo, aka Steezy A. Smith. And I basically just wanted to air out my grievances on what the Seattle Seahawks are doing. Yes, they brought back a Sidney Jones to a below market deal. Yes, they re-signed Al Woods, who was critical to Seattle finishing as a top 10 run defense in football last year. Will Dissly, I'm not as enamored about. $8 million a year? $24 million for Will Dissly? Yes, he might be elite. He might be a dominant blocker, or he might be a vital aspect, a critical component to the blocking game. but Seattle better use him more as a pass catcher, because $24 million and $8 million a year is not going to cut it for a guy who is almost always exclusively used as a blocker, at least on the majority of his snaps is used as a blocker. Allow me to demonstrate though. Going back to DJ Reed, this is a massive blow for the Seattle Seahawks. Like I mentioned, this secondary has been in shambles ever since Richard Sherman left, and who knows, the draft might provide more clarity as to what Seattle is going to do at the cornerback position. And I'm not saying, allow me to preface my comments first by saying this. I'm not saying that DJ Reed is better than Jalen Ramsey, JC Jackson, and Trevon Diggs, AJ Terrell. And just in case you guys didn't know, those guys finished as all pros at cornerback in the NFL last year. Trevon Diggs and Jalen Ramsey were first team all pros. AJ Terrell and JC Jackson were second team all pros. And again, I'm not saying that DJ Reed is better than any of these guys. But what I will tell you is that DJ Reed is a very underrated corner in the National Football League, probably the best corner in the NFL that you have never heard of, which we alluded to a couple of months ago when we dropped our DJ Reed episode and talking about why we felt like Seattle needed to re-sign him. But now that he's gone, I'm over here scratching my head like, yo, what are these guys doing? Before I get into the thick of things though, allow me to introduce Pine Sports. That is right, I'm talking about the future of sports analytics, Pine Sports. You guys are missing out if you aren't already using Pine Sports. I'm talking about the most advanced sports analytics and AI model on the internet. I'm talking about the future of sports analytics. AI is practically everywhere. Siri, Alexa, you'll literally find it anywhere, everywhere, as a matter of fact. And with Pine Sports gives you a variety of tools, a whole bunch of powerful tools that you can use to customize to your own experience. There's a reason why I brought up Jalen Ramsey, AJ Terrell, JC Jackson, Trevon Diggs. Again, I'm not saying that DJ Reed is better than any of those guys. There's a reason why all those guys finished as all pros last year. But what I am saying though, is that by using Pine Sports, I was able to compare DJ Reed statistically to some of his peers. How did he fare against a Jalen Ramsey? How did he fare against an AJ Terrell? Well, let's find out. As I mentioned, on Pine Sports, you can customize your own experience. And that's exactly what I did here. And the first example I want to show you guys is with DJ Reed and Jalen Ramsey. Looked at and selected a few statistical categories in which I wanted to compare DJ Reed to, let's start off with AJ Terrell. I picked interceptions, combined tackles, and assists on tackles. And pulling up the pie chart and in the graph that Pine Sports automatically makes for me, the similarities look very, very, very similar. And I'm not saying that DJ Reed is on the level of AJ Terrell as a guy that could cover one-on-one, as a guy that is as sticky in coverage as an AJ Terrell, but there's other aspects that a cornerback can contribute in. And by using Pine Sports and looking at the graph that is shown before me, the players, they fare well and they're very comparable to one another, especially statistically. And here's another nugget for y'all. DJ Reed has the same number of interceptions in the last 2 years as AJ Terrell. They both have 4. Here's another example. In comparing Jalen Ramsey to DJ Reed, look, Jalen Ramsey wasn't used and he wasn't traveling with a bunch of top tier receivers last year. The Rams usually kept him on one side of the formation, and there were a lot of fans kind of complaining about the uses of Jalen Ramsey and why aren't the Rams having him travel more? Well, in my eyes, he still is the best corner of football, but I think in the playoffs, we got to see why the Rams didn't exactly use him in that manner. But as I compare the two players on Pine Sports using their graph that they have printed out for us, it looks very similar now, doesn't it? According to Pro Football Focus, DJ Reed finished right under Jalen Ramsey in terms of run defense grade, 85.8. Both guys were top 5 in terms of run support. Both guys finished top 10 on PFF's top 10 cornerbacks. Matter of fact, DJ Reed placed 8th. And so here I am looking at DJ Reed. Here I am looking at Jalen Ramsey. And again, I'm seeing a lot of the same. Matter of fact, as far as total combined tackles go, DJ Reed trumps Jalen Ramsey in that manner. And yes, that might not mean much because these guys are cornerbacks and you don't expect these guys to go out there and get 100 plus tackles. But Jalen Ramsey has long been underrated as a guy that helps out on run support. That reminds me of a Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was very underrated when it came to his run support in that Seattle system. And so look, I don't want to touch on everything. There's so many different tools that you can use on Pine Sports. I'm only now just scratching the surface of Pine Sports. I've barely even gotten to the depths of Pine Sports and what Pine Sports can potentially offer for you. And so as I continue to use Pine Sports, I hope that you guys do too. Pine Sports is a very, very, very intelligent tool. Like I said, you could bring it with you everywhere. You bring Siri with you, right? You bring Alexa with you, right? Well, why not bring Pine Sports with you? You could bring it with you on the go. And for all you guys that play fantasy out there, this is a perfect tool for you guys. It'll help you guys with prop bets, fantasy football, fantasy basketball, there's baseball, wrestling, hockey, any sport, you name it. This is your number one source for not only sports analytics, for anything that might involve the use of a sports AI, for betting projections, betting odds, fantasy projections, fantasy stats, team stats, all that good stuff. There is so many things. There is so many things that you could do on Pine Sports. Like I said, this is the future of sports analytics, so better to hop on the wave now before it's too late. Again, this has been your host, Calvin Domingo, aka Steezy A. Smith. Before I sign off, I do just want to say we are going live on this channel later this week, most likely this weekend. Got a couple of special guests on tap. So if you've been tuning into our live streams, thank you so much. I know we're all dealing with fragile hearts here. No more Russ, no more Bobby, no more DJ Reed, and we're still stuck with Pete Carroll and John Schneider. But I promise you guys, hopefully the future is bright. And I'm not even talking about the Seahawks future. I'm talking about the future of the sports world, because we do have Pine Sports. That wraps up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful night. As always, all glory to God, and Steezy out. Again, this video is going to be dedicated to Mr. Todd Nas. While that concludes this video, we have loads of other content. You don't have to stop watching there. Other content on our channel homepage, as well as our social media platforms. And again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.